everyone, Ivy League Gaming here, and today we're playing Dragonheir Silent Gods. For today's video, I'm going to go through the top 10 epic debuffers in the game. So when I'm talking about debuffers, I'm talking about the offensive support. The ones that enable your heroes to either perform better because they're disabling the enemy, or because, I guess that's it, because they're hindering the enemy, they are able to help your people do better, or just, slow down, prevent the enemy from doing things like healing. But for this video, we're not going to talk about the tanks. There's a lot of tanks that provide valuable debuffs, and I'm not going to talk about the ones that are only healers or like buff support in the sense of enabling your team. I already did a video talking about the best epic buffers and healers. So that is more what I would call defensive support, helping to keep your team alive. Where I'm going to say offensive support, like the debuffers, are ones that help enable your team to do more damage. So that's kind of how we're going to look through this. I'm going to pick one or two from each element, and we're going to go through. And there's going to be, for the most part, the idea of debuffers is going to be the red debuffs, right? So with anything that's in red or purple, you need accuracy to land. This will also include buff stripping, buff dispelling from the enemy, and shield dispelling, which both of those also require accuracy, even though it's not a proper debuff per se. And keep in mind, the game is really great. You can actually support by buffs and debuffs. Just unfortunately, we can't sort by instance. So that's one thing I want to add. I keep forgetting about it as a suggestion to the devs with like the moderator chats that they have, to suggest that they add to the list instant. So buff, debuff, control, and instance. Instance would be dispels a debuff, dispels a buff, dispels a shield, stuff like that. That is both offensive or defensive. But yeah, there's my little intro. That's what we're going to talk about for today. So let's get into it. We're going to first start off with the fire element here. And I'm going to go with Brody as a solid choice because he has a very niche use. So Brody's kit is a lot involving enemies with shields. But that's one other thing. This is what we like about him too. It's not 100% chance to land though. So, all right, Brody has attack penalty 2. This is going to be one of the most important debuffs we talk about. And you're always looking for 100% chance to land that, at least when booked up, right? He's only 75% chance to land that when booked up, but you could use the arrow that is a rare artifact, which is also great for Horus because he's the same. He can't be 100% either. That arrow is very valuable to give accuracy to your hero and provides a higher chance to land a debuff or buff from a battle skill. So I would suggest that as an artifact for Brody, but he does bring attack penalty too. But this is not why I'm picking him for our list. We're going to pick him for the list because of this. Dispels shields from enemies within range and deals damage. And defense up. Doesn't hurt. He gains defense up. He is a melee damage dealer, so he's in that close combat. Harder to keep him alive, so giving him self-defense up is great. But dispelling shields, obviously there's some cases where that is very valuable. Grave of Curse and the ice, frost domain for the domains are great examples. Or arena, honestly, as well, when you're going against enemies that are putting up shields. So dispelling shields is a very valuable skill, and there's not many people that do it. So we have to have Brody on the list. All right, number 2 is going to be Dane. Now, Dane has been power crept as well. Like, you're not going to see Brody and Dane as much as you would have last season on those leaderboards or in the suggested teams that have beat the stages when you're looking at lineup recommendations, because there's so many other people that just do it better. But for the sake of fire, it's a little bit more limited. We do like Dane because he brings healing prohibition, but the healing prohibition, again, is not 100%. Yet another hero that would be a good candidate for the arrow artifact. Accuracy to land it and increases chances to do so. He does bring fear, which is also helpful as a debuff. And he does have 2 AoEs. So the good thing about Dane is he has 2 AoEs, battle skill and ultimate. So he can be great for something like Goblin or just helping clear the waves faster. But unfortunately, this is not 100%. So if you're just talking overall synergy when it comes to poison and fire, you're going to go with the rare Sigrid over Dane in a heartbeat. Just don't even build Dane if that's all you need him for. But if you're talking about something specific that you're doing a full only fire team, like with new content coming out like the bosses, and what I'm sure we're going to encounter again in Otherworld exploration, then Dane could be your guy, especially if you use the right artifacts. He does bring the small version of attack penalty 1 on his ultimate as well, so that helps. It's not the bigger version, but hey, he also steals all their buffs as well if the target has below 50% HP. So he can be another helper to remove buffs as a buff stripper as well, which is also, again, dispelling shields, dispelling buffs are really great to have for a lot of content in this game. So he can definitely shine if you need him there. All right, next up, hero number 3 that we're going to talk about, well, we're going to go on to our poison heroes. Again, don't ignore Adolphus not being mentioned because obviously he's one of the best epics in the game. He's just more a defensive support hero, more so. So I'm going to not mention him in this category. All right, we're going to talk about Ekis. She's still very strong, but another one that's been a little bit power crept by all the other amazing options. But I'll still mention her because she brings some interesting stuff. Her passive when inflicting debuffs reduces their damage dealt by 10% at the same time. So she actually, when she puts a debuff, she decreases the damage an enemy does. That's an extra bonus. It's like an extra decrease attack, but not directly as a debuff, right? That's really cool. She also has healing prohibition with a 100% chance to land on her battle skill, which is great because you come back to it more often. And then she brings recharging speed penalty and dispels a debuff from all allies and charms the enemy. So she kind of has a lot of fun stuff here with her ultimate as well. She is a melee damage dealer. Keep that in mind for depending on your formations. But yeah, recharging speed penalty can really help to slow down how fast your enemies are coming back to their ultimates. And then charm makes them attack each other. So this is a really fun character for something like Arena, especially if you're going for like the poison synergies. I'm sure you could use her in some of the other content, again, like the continental bosses or future Otherworld exploration, but she's still very good. She's just been power crept because of this right here. Last season, we mostly used her because of healing prohibition in the beta, but now Sigrid, who is a rare and the same element, just does that job better and hits harder. So she's still not the top option if that's what you're looking to fill. Keep that in mind. Next up, I'm actually going to call out Vikuk, who was on my list for healers and buffers as well because he heals and cleanses, which is great offense or defensive support to keep your team alive. But he also brings the very important attack penalty 2 with an AoE damage hit and 100% chance to land on his battle skill. So he's really great to pair with a tank like, I don't know, I would say he could be the second hero that has attack penalty, like if you're with Furboth or with Horus, or if you're building a team with a little bit mixed synergy, but like a 3, just the 3 hero synergy, not the 5, and you have Garius as your tank, then you really need other heroes that have attack penalty 2. So if that's the case, he can be your attack penalty 2 consistent debuffer. He also brings passive here. When the hero is inflicted with a debuff, there's a 100% chance of inflicting accuracy penalty 2 on the debuff caster. So if you build him with enough accuracy to make sure he lands accuracy penalty, then you could actually build your allies with less resistance if you're trying to go resistance build for sake of resisting debuffs. But you're probably not going to go resistance build, ironically, because he's a dispeller, so you don't really need to do that if you have him on the team. So it's a little bit of a weird kit, but hey, decreasing the chances that an enemy is going to place a ton of debuffs on you is definitely not bad, but we love him more for the attack penalty too, and of course the fact that as a support hero, he dispels debuffs and heals, which is really, really great. So, a really strong hero, definitely one of the top epics in the game. All right, on to our lightning heroes. So, let's go on to Yola. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 5 is Yola. That is an I, not an L, but hey, you can be odd one, and he affectionately calls her Lolita. He's just being silly. But yeah, Yola. So she's amazing. She also can hit pretty hard with her ultimate. She's got ranged hit there, single target here, but she hits 3 times. She inflicts silence, so that's a great crowd control debuff. But also, of course, what we're always looking for, attack penalty too. So I kind of, she's the better version, I guess you could say, depending on what you need in your team, of Irina. Irina's kind of the budget Yola, although Irina can remove buffs, so she brings a little something different. But Yola is a top tier debuffer because of this attack penalty 2 on her ultimate, 100% chance to land, and silence doesn't hurt for when you're dealing with waves or arena. You can really, really destroy an arena with Yola as your main booster. You just have someone to boost her ultimate, so she goes quick. She's gonna silence the enemies so they can't do their thing. Oh, and she's gonna hit pretty hard along with it. So really a strong hero for both PvE and PvP. And speaking of silence, there is also silence on her battle skill. Again, just making her even more useful. And her passive here, when attacking enemies already under silence, there's a chance to change silence into stun, even better. So love her, and she brings a great attack aura. Very, very good epic. All right, number 6, we're going to go with Udakotl. This character is the sort of a reskin of Tunnelnon, but she's pretty cool too. She's unique. She's one I don't have. So she brings a nice defense in all battles aura, but this is actually pretty helpful. She puts a little shield, and that she's kind of all about shields, right? And then she's kind of an defensive support hero as well, with these healing defense up shields. But the reason she's on our debuffer list is this. You see shield, but not for us. So this is really helpful. So she deals damage and then removes the enemy's shield. And a chance, 100% chance when booked, to dispel 1 buff. So she dispels shields and a buff, not just shields. Remember, in this game, shields do not count as buffs, which is different than something like Raid Shadow Legends, for example. But Udakotl, very good. Very, very good for this role. I feel like she's such a good support hero. What I hope to get for when I start, I'm building my Radiant and Lightning teams now. I'm going full Radiant at the moment, but when I get to Lightning, I really hope I have pulled her by then, because I feel like I'm really going to need that. The fact that she can help keep your team alive with her passive and her ultimate, and then she can really help you handle a hard enemy like the Grave of Curse, or yeah, I mean, even just like I mentioned, even just the Ice Frost domain. So really cool hero there too. So all right, on to hero number 7. Let's talk about our debuffs. I realize I kind of have to add in Shook. I think there are 3 heroes here in Lightning that are very good for debuffing. So Shook brings an accuracy in all battles to help you land all those debuffs in the first place. Gains ultimate energy, and then he can come back to his ultimate more often, which is a 100% chance when booked to, well, for one, dispel all enemy shields, just like Udakotl. That is really cool. So you could do, as a debuffer, he's kind of better, but Udakotl brings a lot of protection too. I think both heroes are equally as good, just depending on what you need to fill the role in your team. Because he's a dispeller and attack penalty, and recharging speed penalty as well. So he's really more about hindering your enemy, where Udakotl is a lot about helping your team, but also a little bit of hindering the enemy. So they both bring a really, really good kit. So but this is the difference here. So recharging speed penalty is only placed if they successfully dispel shields. So keep that in mind if you're looking for a hero to do the recharging speed. That's only when you're dealing with enemies under shields. And then he does just do some decent enemy here and reduces ultimate energy. That is really, really helpful. People are loving a lot of those heroes that reduce ultimate energy. But keep in mind, if you're trying to use the timing stuff, the presets, it can make that a lot harder because you're not going to have as consistent times to delay your skills for or not, because this is on a battle skill and it's not 100% chance, right? Even this is like 75% chance. It can't book up to 100% chance. So sometimes he's going to reduce the ultimate energy, sometimes he's not. And it's going to affect the way that you, that the boss does their skills. But that doesn't mean you could at least make sure you time your hero's skills in an appropriate order. So like you're doing stuff that are going to stack in a logical manner, like applying a defense penalty before you use your ultimates type thing for the other heroes. But yeah, very, very good hero. We had to call out him as a third one in the lightning category. All right, next up, number 8, we're going to go with Nessa. So Nessa here is a Radiant hero. And if you're building a full Radiant team, she's kind of going to be part of it, I would hope, if you're going against bosses. So let's talk about why. She does bring a 24% attack in all battles. Her passive reduces ultimate energy of the bosses as well. When she's dealing damage to enemies with debuffs, really helpful to help make the enemy not go as often as we're talking about. And then she also does attack penalty too. Just 100% chance to land, no percent chance to land it. She just does it. But even if it says this, guys, inflicting attack penalty 2 on the enemy, it's red, it's a debuff, you still need accuracy to land it. Even if it doesn't say with a 100% chance to attack, like place, blah, blah, blah. Even if it doesn't say that, you still need accuracy. And then her ultimate actually has a chance, 100% chance to inflict blind, so that's really helpful in some scenarios where enemies can be crowd controlled. And then again with healing prohibition. So if you're going against an enemy that's like, especially a boss with heals, and you're going full Radiant, she might be someone you need to use for that healing prohibition, because at least it's 100% chance to land. But her skills are all single targets, so keep that in mind. It could be good for Arena, depending on how you can line things up, but it's more probably for some bosses, not really going to help much in waves or where there's many enemies. So good hero though, nonetheless. All right, next up here, this is a hard one because I'm actually going to kind of say 11 heroes, I guess. But we're going to give a final nod to, Zarloth at the end here is going to just be an honorable mention. We're not going to mention I think I'm going to leave out, I'm actually going to leave out the Necrotic for the sake of the top 10, just because we're talking about more debuffing overall. But yeah, let me get there. So Gardas. Gardas was used pretty heavily last season for a lot of reasons. He was always in in certain dungeons, he was in the top, as suggested, especially those teams with no legendaries. I always saw Gardas really, really good. Brings resistance in all battles, which is great. He also can recharge his own. Each time the hero gets immune, recharges ultimate energy by 25%. And he has a chance to get immune when he inflicts a debuff. Pretty cool. Attack penalty 2 with a 100% chance to land on a battle skill that hits pretty hard, 400% chance, 400% attack. So very, very good battle skill. Very good, helps to keep that consistent attack penalty 2 up. And then here we go. I love his ultimate. I definitely underrated him last season until I saw how well he performed in the high-level dungeons. But he does have a knock-up, knockback, and a stun here. All kind of lots of good crowd control. Really good for Arena if you're using him on offense. You don't want to use him on defense because it's very easy to avoid his beam of attack because he can't twist diagonally. But he also does recharging speed penalty, which again, helping to reduce how often the boss comes back to stuff. But keep in mind, that's another thing that does affect your timings which can make using presets a little bit difficult. But he's still very good for if you're looking for an attack penalty 2 hero to add to your lightning and or necrotic. Like, I think he's really a good answer. And so because of that, because of him and our next hero, who we have to mention in pretty much every category, Voresh, I'm actually not even mentioning necrotic, but that's why I'm just giving a nod, an honorable mention to the final one. So our number 10 on our top 10 list is still Voresh. Voresh brings this extra heal with his passive every time he does damage, but he also dispels one buff with his ultimate. So this is cool. It's 60% chance to dispel a buff with his ultimate. Hits 3 times. Really, really good. And he also hits 3 times with his... Oh, sorry, did I say his ultimate? I meant his battle skill. His battle skill dispels 1 buff. And then his ultimate is a full board hit. Smacks everybody 3 times with a chance of inflicting buff prohibition. So he is key. You're going against bosses that put up buffs. You want him in your team. He's just so good, or anything. And because he hits 3 times and it's the full board, he's also the perfect candidate for wearing the Witch's Remains for that AoE defense penalty legendary artifact. If you don't have Witch's Remains, of course, you could still use the crown, and he can wear that as well, which also helps his accuracy. But yeah, Voresh is kind of a king because he can do good damage and provide amazing support and heal, and he's just kind of a little bit of everything. I don't know that we're going to have many lists except for tank without him, right? And then I am going to say our final mention, our final nod. You could technically say this is our top 11, I guess, but I will give a nod to Zarloth. But Zarloth is honestly best for just his DPS. He hits hard. He's very good. Very, very good. He does so much damage. He really surprises me. This ultimate summons a prison at the location. Let's see, dealing damage to enemies within range every 1 second during the duration of the prison. And he can inflict fear, and then he can heal allies in the meantime. So fear is a little bit of crowd control there, but not super important for most content. And then his battle skill is an AoE little smash with recharging speed penalty, which can be helpful, but again, not the top needed debuff, and he does have a silence here. So I think he provides some okay, helpful debuffs, but even though, I mean, obviously he's about crowd control, this might be more so for the sake of a crowd control conversation. For like arena, he could definitely be in there. But he's more of just a great damage dealer. And I would use him more for just the pure DPS and not worry about accuracy personally in all the areas I use him. So I wouldn't really consider him in the top debuffer category for that reason. But he's a serious honorable mention. There's plenty of others we could talk about. I know a lot of people like Deverick, but Deverick doesn't have a 100% chance to land anything. It's kind of a little bit lackluster for me. And if you're, it's going to be kind of only if you're desperate for using like certain things for the necrotic element itself overall. But yeah, that's our list for debuffers, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.